Before Pulp Fiction made him a household name, Quentin Tarantino unleashed a low-budget crime thriller that rewired indie cinema forever. Reservoir Dogs is more than just black suits, blood, and a botched heist. It's chaos, accidents, and trivia too strange to make up. How rough was the production? Tarantino almost played Mr. Pink himself. The cast raided their own closets for costumes. And one actor actually drove a kidnapped cop to Taco Bell. Here are 20 weird facts about Reservoir Dogs that prove the madness on screen started long before the cameras rolled. Fact 1. Tarantino's $30,000 plan. Reservoir Dogs was never supposed to be the cult classic we know today. Tarantino originally planned Reservoir Dogs as a $30,000 black and white film, shot on 16mm and starring only his friends. No Hollywood names, no studio backing. Just a wannabe filmmaker and his video store buddies making a gangster flick in the style of movies he loved renting out. Lawrence Bender agreed to produce, but at that stage, it was still little more than a bare-bones idea, until the script landed in the hands of a Hollywood heavyweight who would change everything. Fact 2. Harvey Keitel saved the movie. Harvey Keitel didn't just like the script, he was blown away by it. At the time, Keitel was already a respected Hollywood name, best known for gritty performances in Mean Streets and Taxi Driver. His stamp of approval instantly gave Tarantino's tiny project credibility. Not only did Keitel agree to star as Mr. White, he also signed on as co-producer, and that changed everything. He used his industry connections to help raise over $1 million in financing, attracted other established actors to the project, and even mentored the younger, less experienced cast members. Without him, the film might never have made it beyond Tarantino's video store dreams. Instead, it became the spark that ignited his career. Fact 3. Actors brought their own wardrobe. Even with Harvey Keitel's backing, the production was still working on a shoestring budget, and the lack of funds showed up everywhere, even in the costumes. Most of the actors were told simply to bring something from home. Chris Penn wore his own track jacket. Steve Buscemi showed up in black jeans instead of tailored trousers. And Michael Madsen's suit. It was literally a mismatched combo from two separate outfits. But here's the twist. Those constraints accidentally created one of the most recognizable looks in film history. The sharp black suits, skinny ties, and shades became a visual signature of the movie. Instantly iconic, endlessly copied, and parodied for decades to come. The suits weren't even part of the budget. They came courtesy of a designer friend of the production who adored American crime films and provided them essentially for free. Without that stroke of luck, Reservoir Dogs might never have had its signature look. Proof that sometimes, limitations don't just spark creativity, they shape the very identity of a film. Fact 4. The warehouse used to be a mortuary. The cavernous warehouse, where most of the movie takes place, wasn't a Hollywood set. It was a real disused mortuary in Los Angeles. The production could barely afford locations, and the mortuary's open floor plan made it one of the few affordable options. The eerie atmosphere turned out to be perfect. The cold concrete floors and looming shadows gave the space a natural bleakness that no set designer could have matched. Cast and crew later joked about the irony. A film with so many bloody deaths being shot in a building once used to house actual corpses. That morbid authenticity gave the film an extra layer of grit. And with most of the movie locked inside that one claustrophobic space, it also heightened the tension. The characters were trapped together, and so were the audience. Fact 5. Mr. Orange lived upstairs. As if a mortuary warehouse wasn't strange enough, it didn't just serve as the crime scene. It also doubled as Mr. Orange's apartment. Instead of shelling out for another filming location, the crew simply dressed up the upstairs area with cheap furniture, fake walls, and some clever lighting. That's where Tim Roth filmed his agonizing bathroom scenes, bleeding out while practicing his undercover story. The decision to keep both major locations literally stacked on top of each other wasn't just about saving money. It gave the film a strangely theatrical quality, like a stage play unfolding in 2 acts, one on top of the other. And it kept the production lean, since everything was concentrated in one building. Another example of how budget limits forced creativity, and how Tarantino's vision adapted to his circumstances without losing intensity. Fact 6. Tarantino wanted to play Mr. Pink. Quentin Tarantino originally wanted to play the fast-talking Mr. Pink himself. He'd written the part with his own voice in mind, sharp, motor-mouthed, and paranoid. In early drafts, Tarantino imagined himself stealing the show. But when Steve Buscemi auditioned, everything changed. Tarantino reportedly told him, "You'll have to give me a killer audition to take this part away from me." And Buscemi did just that. His frantic, almost neurotic delivery elevated Mr. Pink into one of the film's most memorable characters. Tarantino wisely stepped back, taking a smaller role as Mr. Brown. It was a decision that not only strengthened the movie, but also showed his instincts as a director. Sometimes the right move is to let someone else shine. Fact 7. Michael Madsen took a cop to Taco Bell. Crank up the weirdness, because this one's straight out of a dark comedy. Kirk Baltz, who played the kidnapped cop, wanted the experience to feel as authentic as possible. So he begged Michael Madsen to stuff him in the trunk of a car before filming the torture scenes. Madsen agreed, but didn't just circle the block. He drove to Taco Bell with Baltz still in the trunk. While Baltz was cramped and gasping for air, Madsen casually went through the drive-thru, ordered food, and then drove back to set. That's not method acting, that's fast food horror. Baltz later admitted it was terrifying but useful for his performance, since he now understood the claustrophobic panic his character would have felt. Madsen, meanwhile, thought it was hilarious. It's the kind of behind-the-scenes story that perfectly matches the film's mix of dark comedy and brutality. Fact 8. Lawrence Tierney pulled a gun mid-shoot. Just when you thought the cast couldn't get any crazier, here's Lawrence Tierney's real-life stunt. Tierney, who played the mob boss Joe Cabot, was legendary in Hollywood for being difficult. His tough guy image wasn't just an act, it carried over into his real life. During filming, Tierney was arrested after allegedly pulling a gun on his own nephew in a family dispute. According to Tarantino, he went straight from his bail arraignment back to set the next day, stepping right into character as the intimidating gang leader. It's almost surreal. One day in court for pulling a gun, the next day on set playing a mob boss. Life imitating art in the most unsettling way possible. Tarantino later described Tierney as a complete lunatic, so much so that the cast and crew had to constantly keep him in check. In many ways, his real-life volatility bled into the performance, making Joe Cabot genuinely menacing. Fact 9. Michael Madsen nearly quit over the ear scene. The infamous torture scene wasn't just shocking for audiences. It was almost too much for Michael Madsen himself. When he first read the script, Madsen loved the role of Mr. Blonde. But when it came to the moment where he cuts off the cop's ear, he nearly walked away. He admitted the idea made him feel sick, and he told Tarantino he wasn't sure he could do it. Tarantino encouraged him to lean into the absurd dark humor, pairing cheerful music with horrific violence. Even so, Madsen later called it the hardest scene of his entire career. Proof that sometimes, the scariest scenes on screen are just as unsettling for the actors behind them. Fact 10. Tim Roth got stuck to the floor. Next up, let's talk about dedication and discomfort. Tim Roth, who played Mr. Orange, spent most of the film lying in a pool of fake blood after being shot. The problem was, he spent so long on the floor that the syrupy mixture began to dry and harden. By the time the crew tried to move him, the blood had glued his clothes, and sometimes his skin, directly to the warehouse floor. They had to peel him off carefully between takes, which was both painful and time-consuming. Roth later joked that the hardest part of the performance wasn't pretending to die. It was physically enduring hours of discomfort while still staying in character. His commitment added an eerie realism to Mr. Orange's suffering that made audiences squirm right along with him. Fact 11. A paramedic on set? Quentin Tarantino was obsessed with making Tim Roth's slow bleed-out look convincing. To ensure realism, he had a medical professional consulted on set during those sequences. Their job? To advise on how much blood loss was believable and how someone would actually behave in that state. It wasn't about protecting the actors, it was about making the illusion of dying medically accurate. The result is one of the most disturbingly realistic depictions of a gunshot victim in cinema. It may sound extreme, but that detail is a big reason audiences still wince during Roth's performance. Because medically speaking, it feels far too real. Fact 12. The song that cost it all. Now let's talk about the song that turned a moment of madness into pure cinema. The infamous torture scene with Mr. Blonde is unforgettable, and music played a huge part. Tarantino insisted that the sequence needed a cheery, upbeat song to contrast the horror. He settled on Stuck in the Middle with You by Stealers Wheel. There was just one problem. The licensing fee ate up nearly the entire soundtrack budget. For a film with so little money, it was a massive gamble. But Tarantino believed the right song would turn the moment into cinematic history. He was right. Today, it's impossible to hear that track without picturing Michael Madsen's Dance of Death. One risky choice of music elevated a brutal scene into one of the most iconic and unsettling moments in modern film. Fact 13. The heist you never see. Here's something that makes Reservoir Dogs so unique. You never actually see the heist. One of Tarantino's boldest choices was to never actually show it to the audience. The central crime happens completely off-screen. Instead, we get the lead-up, the chaotic aftermath, and fragments of what might have happened through the characters' arguments. This wasn't just about saving money, though a robbery sequence would have destroyed the budget. Tarantino was inspired by stage plays like Glengarry Glen Ross, where the crime itself happens offstage and the story focuses on the characters instead. The result is brilliant. By skipping the action, the audience is forced to imagine the chaos, which often makes it feel more violent and unpredictable than if it had been shown. It turned a limitation into one of the most distinctive choices of the film. Fact 14. Madonna's sassy reply. The film opens with the gang arguing over Madonna's song Like a Virgin. Tarantino's theory? The lyrics were all about sexual pain. Madonna saw the movie and loved it, but she didn't love Tarantino's interpretation. To set him straight, she sent him a signed copy of her erotica album with the message, "To Quentin, it's not about dick, it's about love. Madonna." It's one of the most famous mic drops in music meets cinema history. And while Tarantino didn't argue back, he got exactly what he wanted. The scene became legendary, and his obsession with pop culture references became his signature style. Fact 15. Inspired by a Hong Kong movie. When Reservoir Dogs came out, critics and fans quickly noticed how much it resembled the 1987 Hong Kong crime film City on Fire, starring Chow Yun-fat. Both stories involve an undercover cop infiltrating a gang of jewel thieves, building to a violent warehouse standoff. The similarities were so strong that many accused Tarantino of ripping it off. Tarantino admitted he was heavily influenced by Asian cinema, but insisted Reservoir Dogs was an homage rather than a copy. In truth, the debate only fueled the film's cult status. Whether you see it as inspiration or imitation, the fusion of East and West crime cinema gave the movie its unique, electric energy. Fact 16. Written in just 3.5 weeks. Believe it or not, Tarantino cranked out the Reservoir Dogs script in just 3.5 weeks. He'd been stockpiling ideas while working at the Video Archives rental store, where he spent hours talking about films with customers and colleagues. When he finally sat down to write, the dialogue poured out of him, sharp, raw, and full of the pop culture tangents that would become his trademark. That speed gave the script its loose, improvised energy, as if the characters were making it up as they went along. It's almost absurd to think that one of the most quoted independent films of all time came together in less than a month. Sometimes, lightning-fast writing creates a spark that lasts decades. Fact 17. The title is still a mystery. Even decades later, nobody really knows what Reservoir Dogs actually means. Tarantino has never explained it, and he's dodged the question every time it comes up. Fans have offered endless theories. Some suggest it's a misheard French title, Au revoir les enfants. Another claims it was a private joke between Tarantino and his video store customers. Others think it's just meant to sound gritty and mysterious, like something out of a forgotten crime novel. The truth: Tarantino's silence keeps the myth alive. The fact that nobody can pin it down has only deepened the film's cult appeal. Sometimes, the mystery is the magic. Fact 18. Banned in several countries. Reservoir Dogs faced censorship worldwide thanks to its graphic violence. This made it one of the most controversial movies of the 1990s. In some places, censors refused to show it. South Korea still hasn't released it to this day because its laws prohibit depictions of police torture or murder. In the UK, it was briefly banned on VHS in the 1990s after pressure from critics and politicians, though it continued to screen in cinemas. Other countries cut entire sequences, especially the infamous torture scene. Ironically, the controversy only helped its reputation. Being too dangerous to watch turned Reservoir Dogs into a must-see for curious audiences worldwide. Fact 19. Flop in America, sensation in the UK. In the US, Reservoir Dogs barely made a dent. It pulled in just $2.8 million at the box office, a blip in Hollywood terms. With almost no marketing and its NC-17 level violence scaring theaters, most American audiences didn't even know it existed. But across the Atlantic, the story was completely different. In the UK, the film exploded. Tarantino was mobbed like a rock star at screenings, and critics hailed him as a revolutionary voice in cinema. Young British filmmakers studied it obsessively, inspired by its dialogue and daring violence. In a strange twist, Tarantino's global career was born not in Hollywood, but in London. Fact 20. Filmed in just 35 days. From the first shot to the final wrap, Reservoir Dogs was filmed in just 35 days. That's barely over a month to make what would become one of the most iconic independent films of all time. The rushed schedule created an intensity that bled into the film itself. Actors had little time to second-guess their performances, so scenes came out raw and immediate. Tarantino himself was learning as he went, directing with adrenaline and instinct more than experience. That urgency gave the movie its rough edges, but also its electric energy. It feels alive because it was made under pressure, and you can sense that in every frame. In the end, Reservoir Dogs wasn't just an indie crime flick, it was a launchpad. Without this film, there's no Pulp Fiction, no Kill Bill, no Tarantino becoming one of the defining directors of his generation. What started as a shoestring dream of a $30,000 home movie turned into a festival sensation at Sundance, a cult phenomenon in the UK, and the spark that changed 1990s cinema. Tarantino himself has often said he owed everything to Reservoir Dogs. It was the movie that proved you could make Hollywood listen, even if you started with nothing but passion, a script, and a few black suits. And there you have it. 20 weird and wild facts that prove Reservoir Dogs was just as chaotic behind the scenes as it was on screen. Which of these facts surprised you the most? Or did we miss one of your favorites? Drop it in the comments below. We love hearing your stories. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button, subscribe, and stick around. We've got plenty more movie secrets to uncover. See you in the next video.